Use imagination to creatively self-express. That's how you save the world. That's how you create art, and that's how you get closer to your own center through your imagination, creatively self-expressing and solving problems. That's it. That's my North Star.
He's gone from bands to jingles to becoming a fan fave in the Pokémon ecosphere.
The wonderfully creative and soulful Jason Paige is our guest today.
My name is Nancy Magarill. I'm a singer, songwriter, composer, performer, graphic and web designer.
And I'm Peter Michael Marino, and I'm a writer, producer, creator, performer, and educator.
We are New York-based artists you may or may not have heard of.
And we are here to introduce you to other artists you may or may not have heard of.
Jason, how are you?
Jason Paige here. I'm very good. How are you?
Oh my God. What have we gotten ourselves into?
I think of you as the Robin Williams of vocal work. You are the crazy guy of music and vocals. Am I wrong?
That was how I got the big bucks, basically.
Wow.
Yeah, you got to jump around. You got to be a chameleon. You got to do what they want. You got to dance, monkey, dance.
Well, but also you have a fucking killer voice that you can do that with. You truly have one of the best, most versatile voices I've
thank you
ever
very much,
heard.
Nancy. I really
Oh
appreciate
my
it.
gosh.
That's really kind of you to say that.
If you weren't so shy, maybe more people would know about you.
I kind of want to quickly go back and just talk about the history of where you started about just doing vocals in New York City, and from the What's Up show, from your band days and all that, to how you got into doing the voice work and Pokemon stuff that you're doing.
Well, would you like to hear the AI version that I typed into Udio? This is the history of my band, so everyone will understand. I did it in like 30 different styles. There's an Indian Hindu version. There's a rap version. Let's do the disco version.
What was the point of doing it? Were you doing it just to see what would happen and test AI?
Yeah, I was testing the AI style generator, and I thought, wow, what a great subject is just to write out all of the things that happened in my band and send it to all my band members, not actually make a song out of it.
Industry? You're not sending it to industry?
Yeah, not sending
something they would love.
No. But it outlines all of our industry failures and our industry successes and all the different band members. From basically getting produced by Steve Katz from Blood, Sweat and Tears, the guitar player from Blood, Sweat and Tears. Then Steve Sells from this band IRT, Watch the Closing Doors. He produced us. The drummer's father hooked it all up. Then this guy, Mark Cunningham from the band Heaven, got us. And the different members of the band switched in and out as over the years. But we got a deal with Paul Stanley from Kiss's management company. We played a showcase and nobody liked it, so we got dropped. Then we got back together. So then What's Up got a band with Ross Elliott and NEM Entertainment as Sunday the Dream Believer. We produced a whole bunch of demos, and that band got a record deal on Imago, and they wanted us to be new kids on the block. So they kind of manipulated our album, and then they kind of ignored us. So we confronted Terry Ellis, the head of Imago Records, who's a record company icon, in the elevator. We waited for him in the lobby, and we jumped in the elevator with him and confronted him. And then, we basically assaulted him. And then we got dropped. And then it became a TV show.
What, the band became a TV, like Josie and the Pussycats?
No, this was the What's Up show that we were talking about with Russ Irwin, that they're hopefully going to do a documentary on.
Oh. Correct. Well, the band was promoting its gigs online on the public access networks of Manhattan Public Access.
That was
after we got
online
dropped.
back then.
We love it.
Yeah. Did I say that?
And
Yeah,
porn.
online.
That's where we watched porn too.
That's right.
Robin Bird.
Robin Bird was the first porn
Well, some
star
of you
publicly.
watched porn, not
Some
all
of
of us watched it.
Okay. Soft porn. It wasn't actually even real porn. But we promoted ourselves on public access, not online. That's not online. On TV before online.
Yeah.
And that freedom was what really expanded us creatively and as performers, and the jingle world sort of is an expansion of all of the fun we were having on this public access TV show. Then we started doing jingles, which is just sort of the same thing, but in musical form, because we were acting and doing skits and twisting ourselves into characters and different scenarios that would entertain the public. And that's really what jingles are. You're twisting yourself into a scenario that is going to capture the attention and the imagination of the listener and sell them a product.
So wait, the band had your intention was to create a band that created jingles? No.
The band was already created. We're promoting the band online now. I mean, on public access. And the silliness of the band's antics became more interesting to us than the music of the band.
I see.
And all of that silliness were sketch comedy and different reality TV that we were doing as a band. And then we'd have one song from the gig, but the rest of the show would be the band doing all this crazy stuff.
Like the Monkees.
Yes. Hey, with the Monkees.
Yes.
But also that was a time where a lot of people, especially in town, I don't know elsewhere in the country, but were really doing jingle work. There was a lot of demo money for jingles back then. I don't know what it's like now, but there was a lot going on.
Yes, there was a lot of music houses all over New York City that were producing many, many spots on demand for tons of marketing agencies. And the era of jingles.
Were you writing and singing jingles, or were you a jingle artist? You were doing both. So you were working with the advertising companies?
Russ and I were doing jingles, writing them together. We were producing and writing them, and then I was running around singing them elsewhere, because the real financial reward with jingles is in the vocal contracts, in the performance contract, in the vocal contract specifically.
But I imagine, Pfizer, there's 1,000 people that have to approve your lyrics first.
Correct.
Right? So that's what you were going through as a young man.
Well, yes. However, the hierarchy goes: Pfizer hires a advertising agency.
Yeah.
The advertising agency might hire 2 or 3 music houses. The music houses have producers that produce the spots, and then I'm a singer under those producers. And of course, we were also a music house working sometimes in partnership with ad agencies, but never directly with the client. Like when we wrote Lego Mania, that was through New York Jam, the music house, through, I believe, McCann Erickson, or one of the big companies that Lego hired.
Right.
So,
right.
So you were in a special position where you were also working to write jingles with Russ in your own company, but then you also could be hired by other houses to do the actual vocal when it got picked up.
Correct. Or before it got picked up as a demo.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And that is how you became the singer of Pokémon. You did not know. You just went into this thing and they were looking for the right voice. And you were like, what is this? I don't care. I'm just going to sing this thing. And then it becomes, to us in the States, we didn't know. It was already this huge global thing.
Yes. That is one of the vocal sessions that I did over the years, over those jam-packed years. For a company called Paradise Music, I sang Domino's Pizza Delivers for them. And we also were writing some spots for that company as well. But that was just a vocal demo gig that went final and then went to an album. It was so popular in the first couple of years that they took the theme song and stretched out into a full single, played it on the Radio Disney. It was a #1 single on Radio Disney. The album of music from that was called To Be a Master, with 12 other Pokemon related songs. I sang one other one, I'm on the road to Viridian City. And that was probably the second most popular song on the album.
Wow.
And that album still today is a major part of Pokemon history, as is the theme song, obviously.
It's interesting that you have a voice that, or at least the voice you've been using today, is reminiscent of like a a young man on a quest, right? Which is kind of like exactly what Pokemon is.
Yes.
Did you find that you kept being called in for that same type of energy or voice placement or character?
No, not at all. As a matter of fact, it's always a different assignment. And I am a young man on a quest still, even though I'm, wouldn't be considered a young man on a quest. I consider myself a young man on a quest. But that particular sound is a very specific sound, and it is kind of true to my inner voice.
It is.
I think.
Definitely.
In the bands that I sang with, I was singing about optimistic, life, and it was very inspirational, and I always felt like I needed to make an impact as an artist in a way where that was a little more important. And the band What's Up that Nancy's familiar with always had very inspirational, very positive, powerful messaging. And even the bands before that, when I was between the ages of 13 and 20, it kind of sounds like that same Pokemon character.
Where do you think that came from? I'm trying to find the word. It's not like you're not an artivist. That's even a hard word to say.
Artivist. I've never heard of that.
Where you're using your art to make social change.
Yes. Well, I was doing that in a very concerted and direct way from the time I got out of the band days until Pokemon resurged again, which is basically from the year 2002 until 2016 when Pokemon Go came out. I was an artivist in a very direct and specific way. Before that, I was an inspirational artist. And I wasn't really in an activist sort of mentality. We were just sort of like, I wanted to do a song that wasn't about a breakup relationship. I wanted to do a song about making the world a better place and living your dreams and inspiring people and not just,
the Tom Robbins of music.
Yeah.
Of
music.
Where do you think you got that from?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I'm not really sure where I got my optimism from. Yeah. But I think I just kind of, from my friends, from the love that I received as a child, from being an only child perhaps and being the center of attention and wanting to make people happy. I think there's a sort of an element of the performer that wants to make people happy. There's also the element that the performer that wants to express his angst and get out his emotions. Yeah. But the happiness was more what I wanted. As being the center of attention as an only child, perhaps that performer that wanted to just outperform the other guys who were just talking about their problems.
Yeah.
In the music that was going on at the time when I was creating that music and being the center of the band.
So did you always know you wanted to be a musician and a singer?
I think we're all singers when we come out of the womb.
Well,
we
definitely.
learn music to learn how to speak. We learn the ABCs, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Yeah. Before we learn how to speak, we're singing. And that is a music that we are musicians. We're born musicians. It's when do we stop becoming musicians? When are we diverted from our natural creative path, drawing, playing, writing, imaginative thinking beings? And that diversion usually happens in school when they divert us into square rooms for 40-minute intervals, doing things that we could care less about, that are not creative, that limit our imaginations and stop us from being the geniuses that we are. I recently heard about a study that NASA did where they wanted to determine what geniuses were, what made people geniuses. And they developed a test that basically tested the imagination creating solutions to the problems in the test, basically. The test was, questions, and you'd have to use your imagination to create solutions. They tested the children, the 3 to 5 year olds, and they scored 85% of them scored in the genius range. Wow. As they went up in age, less and less geniuses were found. And to the adult range, there were 2% of adults would score in the genius range. And they determined that it was school that is what diminished the imagination and the development of genius.
Was it just in the U.S. or was this a more universal?
They're pretty much the same. Our education comes from the Prussian system, which was adopted by all European nations, and it was designed to help the Prussian government create soldiers that wouldn't run away from battle, to ultimately protect their nation. And that Prussian nation grew exponentially from this modern education system that they created, which was basically the appeal to authority, to diminish the imagination, and to create soldiers that were not going to think, but to appeal to authority and do what they were told. And we have pretty much the same nuts and bolts of that system in all schooling around the world now.
So basically what we're saying, listeners, is that art is what is going to save the world. It's that simple. And we encourage you all to go make art and save the world with us.
Yeah.
We're done.
There you go.
We're doing our job.
That's
Time
the
for
key.
you to do yours, listener.
I have a phrase that I have as my North Star whenever I'm like trying to figure out which way to go in my business or my career or creatively in a show. And I did a painting of this. It's just black letters on the yellow splotches with chocolate chia seeds that I threw all over at the end of it. So, but it's called, and it just says, use imagination to creatively self-express.
Yeah.
So that it really is what it is. That's how you save the world. That's how you create art, and that's how you get closer to your own center through your imagination, creatively self-expressing and solving problems. You know, that's it. That's my North Star.
This is coming at such a good time for me, Jason. I will be intimate with you in this moment. That I've been.
Should I go away?
No, it's all right. I've been working on some mental health stuff very intensely for the past year, trying to figure some stuff out. Why do I have this problem, and why does this bother me, and blah 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 blah. And recently, one of my 18 therapists we sort of went back to childhood, and I won't even go into it. But basically, my job now is, I think I have my Post-it note right here.
Your assignment.
Things that brought me joy as a child.
Ah, yeah.
And I have to keep thinking about those things. And then I have to, I've always been attracted to underdog stories, I guess because I was one. So I'm supposed to be watching all these underdog type movies and see what it is that connects and all that. And on top of all that, I kind of had to revisit the moment in my childhood where my best friend said, you can't be in the folk group at church because you can't sing. And then I remembered, right? I was like probably 11 or 12. And then cut to like you graduate college, you move to New York, you buy The Artist's Way because that's what you do.
Yes.
And it's like, who told you you weren't an artist? You must confront them. There I am calling my best friend going, just letting you know. I'm flat when I sing because of you.
Right. That's right.
I don't have any confidence. Nah. So it's just interesting that you're talking about this because I do miss the untethered imagination that I had as a kid. And although people who are familiar with my work now will be like, you think like a 10-year-old. But my 10-year-old thought of a lot more stuff than what I'm thinking of as an adult. So I'm glad you're talking about
you're trying to restore yourself to that natural state that is the human expressive, imaginative being that we all are underneath of all of the programming.
We're not censoring ourselves.
No,
you're
not at
learning
all.
to not sense. You're learning to not censor yourself, right?
Right.
You're
learning
didn't
to
as
not
a kid.
Exactly. And I think I just maybe I got less censorship than other people, or at some point I was just encouraged more to not censor. But I did go through the schools, the 12 different public schools that all tried to censor me and put me in the box.
Do you teach, Jason?
I will coach, but I do not teach.
My God, wouldn't it be so wonderful for a generation of people to have you as a teacher?
I know.
To just be like,
True.
I've often thought about that, but I don't really believe in the teaching model. I believe in the learning model where you educate yourself, not somebody teaching you what they know. Yeah. You get and see what they know, and then you educate yourself based on that.
But I don't think everybody has that ability. I actually think there are people that do learn that way. And then I think there are people that need teachers and people that can show them how to get somewhere that they couldn't get to. Granted, yes, we all have innate ability when we are born. But then when it's stripped away, I think that sometimes people don't know how to access it after.
Yeah.
And that's what great teachers do. Like I think Tylee Ross. Do you know Tylee? He was East Village Opera Company.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I've worked with him.
He's a phenomenal teacher.
Mhm.
And he works with people who have had problems with their voices. I had vocal dysphonia, and he really helped me get out of that.
Mhm.
And I think, and he works with people that have had those kinds of problems. And I think that, yes, maybe I could have found my way back out of that on my own, but I'm so grateful I had someone like him to help lead me there.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
you had that one-on-one. I think we're talking about just being a teacher to a lot. Like, how do you break down the needs of 13 or 23 or 33 kids?
Well, yeah, that are all the same age, chasing the
Yeah.
same answer that
Yeah.
you have really very little control over. I did do some official work in a school with a good friend of mine. Mark Wilson was the theater director of Hartford Academy of the Arts. And he said, "Hey, they've got to read this book, Uncle Tom's Cabin. Harry Beecher
love that
Stowe wrote this book. It's 600 pages long or whatever. They're not going to read it. The Stowe House is here, and they want to do a program where we write a musical based on it. Why don't you come in and we'll write a musical based on this book with the kids?"
Wow.
And I went to Hartford a couple times a week, drove up there, and we took chapters and we turned them into songs and a musical that was an incredible experience of not just Harry Beecher Stowe's Uncle Tom's Cabin, but the world of slavery as it exists today, with anti-slavery societies and organizations coming in to sort of educate the kids and the audiences that were showing up to see this thing. Harry Beecher Stowe House also promoted it. We performed it at the Bushnell Theater. It was one of the most rewarding experiences of my life, without having any credentials or any ability to really legally teach in this way. I was governing the way that these kids were expressing themselves and writing songs with them about modern day slavery and scenes about how these settlers back in the day might have justified the slavery that was going on. It was very, very, very enlightening. And then we did the next year we did a musical based on Henry Box Brown, the slave who got into the box and mailed himself to freedom. Pretty cool.
Oh, I don't know that story.
It's really cool.
I think there's a one-man show about it, actually.
Yeah, he basically went around the world doing a one-man show about it afterwards with a diorama that he painted that was just like a backdrop of scrolling backdrops that he went around doing the show. Incredible.
That's
so
brilliant.
we did a show about him and his life.
Wow. I want to just circle back real quickly and just insert something, because I think we talked about this very briefly, and I think it's such an important book besides Uncle Tom's Cabin, which is the best book I've ever read. But The Artist's Way is something that everybody, no matter whether you're an artist or not, should do.
Yep.
Because it so opens up every avenue of creativity.
It's
and
on your
thought.
shelf somewhere, isn't it? Someone recently asked on Facebook, did anyone read The Artist's Way, and was it good? And I was
funny.
like, yes, 35 years ago, and it's why I'm a writer. That's all I need to say. And it's why I can sing now.
There you go. For me, I wrote The Artist's Way instead of reading it. No, I mean, I read the first part that said write 3 pages.
Yeah, you
and
did
then
all that.
I wrote 10 volumes of 3 pages, and then
Right.
and then it was past 3 pages. It was 10 pages. It was however many pages I needed, and it all got organized. And I thought at one point it might be dangerous to not read the whole Artist Way and get some context about what happens when you open up the floodgates. And then I kind of went back and I was like, oh yeah, there is more context. And there's even a workbook that goes along with it to help you contextualize and organize your flood of creativity that happens when you open it up.
The instructions are 3 pages. You broke the rules. You decided, I know better than this thing that every person I know has done. I'm going to just keep writing. I'll show you Artist's Way.
Yeah. That's pretty much what I did.
But I will say, I will bet at some point in your creative life, all of that stuff will come in some way that will be creative. Because I personally don't believe that there's one way, even with the Artist's Way. There's not one way to do any of this. And I think that the thing that's great about journaling, which is in essence what you were doing, is that it sort of brings up all that subconscious shit. that as artists we tap into, and whether we're cognizant of it or not, at some point it comes out in these beautiful ways in our art. I don't think in any way that can hurt you to at least let that come up on a page somewhere and just tuck it away.
Letting it out, you're releasing the beast.
Yeah.
I mean, otherwise it's just going to cause you anxiety inside. I mean, you have to. I'll share this.
I also, real quickly, I just don't see you as someone who has to worry ever about not being creative. You know, sorry, Pete, I didn't mean to interrupt your train of thought, but I think it's probably always going to come out there somehow.
I kept, like, they tell, you know, whatever, you're an actor, you're whatever, you're an artist, so they tell you, journal everything. And clearly by the tone of my voice, which indicates how I'm feeling, I am not a person who likes doing that. But I did what I was supposed to do, and I would journal, and especially if I got like a show out of town and I was gone for 3 weeks or 3 months, like, okay, let me just journal, okay. So I had a lot of fucking journals. And a few months ago, I was just cleaning up and realized that there was an enormous box that was taking up an enormous amount of space. And I made the decision to throw out all of my journals. So, there were artist friends who reacted to like Jason just did. And then
I've done that too. So
other people that were like, good, you've opened up room for new ideas. Great. So weeks went by and I was like, I made the right decision. I'm good. And I started having this idea about writing this play that is inspired by some people I knew, including myself, growing up in Long Island in the 80s. And I was like, God damn it. I would be able to literally pull passages from my books for all 3 characters. Like, that's how all over the place I was, you know?
Now you have to dig into your memory.
It was already written. You could photograph it all, and now you've got it on a drive somewhere instead of in a book. And now it's even more disorganized.
That's actually you could hire someone to scan your journals, but then that fucker is going to turn your journals into a great movie because they're like reading all the material.
I thought about doing that same thing, but I wanted
scanning or throwing them out?
No, throwing them out. But it wasn't going to be thrown out. I was going to take it to Burning Man, and I was going to read it at the temple, and then I was going to give it to the temple and have it be burned and in some sort of more important ceremony.
Yeah, but you're still making a performance out of it, Jason.
It was the same thing, but I wanted to see what it was that was in it. Yeah. Plus, when it's at the temple, people can read through it and kind of have that experience of it. But
I'm going to tell you, if anyone read through my journals, I think I would be mortified. Because I know I have little bits and pieces where I'm like, oh, that's a great lyric or that's a great idea. But most of it is just shit.
Wait, you went to like your artistic expressions in your journals. I automatically go to like, I said some horrendous things about all of my friends and family in my journals.
Oh, of course. Oh, there's that too.
Oh, okay. Just making sure.
It's all
was I doing it wrong? It's a Dear Diary.
Yeah, but I think that's the whole thing is you get to a point where you're like, I don't know if I want to leave this behind. And we're not 20 anymore. So now we're starting to think a little more about mortality. And it's like, you know what? I'm not so sure I want anyone reading this. This they could read. That
you could edit it, right? You want to edit it down to what they can read. Redacted.
Yeah. But it also works both ways, I guess, because there were some things that I was like, you clever little fuck. That was, 18-year-old. That was really clever. That was a great observation. That's really funny. And then there's other stuff that it's like, that is mortifying, horrifying. You should be, put in an asylum, or you're very violent. You sound angry, all of that. So it's interesting that you can actually look at your past, your childhood, really, your younger self, and to be able to pull out that there was a glimmer of hope and light and lightness and comedy and humor from that, it kind of like makes you go, okay, yeah, I turned out the way I'm supposed to.
Yep.
Well, we are what we are anyway. It doesn't matter.
We are what we are.
I want to talk about your experience when you go, because I know Pete also wants to talk about the Comic-Con festivals. What's that experience for you? Are people accosting you? Do you have like a crazy fan base?
It's a very unique experience in the sense that in my mind, I understand who I am, and I understand what I want to be in the world. And I understand the impact that I want to have over people and that I try to have. And what is happening is all of my own understanding of myself and my efforts is being reflected back to me in almost the exact way that I would have imagined it, but from a totally different outlet. I didn't imagine it coming back at me from this effort, but from my efforts as an artist, my efforts as a performer, my efforts as a writer, as a producer, as a creator, and as a singer. And this is from me being a singer, but it's not from any of the things that I would have thought it would have been from. But it is the exact thing, in the sense that people are confessing incredible amounts of love and the impact that I've had over their lives. Like, it's one song, but the song extends into the entire Pokemon ecosystem, which had a massive, profound impact over their lives. So it's all funneled back to the song. And there's a couple of celebrities that exist in the Pokemon ecosystem, a couple of voiceover actors, but they don't represent the whole thing. Right. They represent the character.
Right.
You are literally the introduction to the series.
I represent the entire ecosystem as if I created Pokemon, which I did. I had nothing to do with it. And the guy who created it is extremely private and not public. And I'm sure people would say, you changed my life to that guy. I mean, he's the real guy that changed everybody's life. But I am the front man to that. And I am the voice that helped to make that industry and that ecosystem happen. Just happened to be in the front, not visually, just my voice. And so therefore, I am the recipient of this life-changing experience that 1.5 billion people have had.
That's amazing.
And that's sort of, in my mind, what I always wanted from my life, through my efforts as a writer and a creator. But it came from this one experience, this one effort. And I have a profound gratitude for that. And so basically, I say, I spent 4 hours on this song. I spent 4 hours on this effort, maybe a little bit more with travel and the subway and the cabs and however long they took to get there. But in terms of the session time, the singing time, the people that line up for hours to get my autograph, depending on the event, and a photo with me, have spent thousands of hours on this, building this ecosystem. So now I'm just trying to catch up. Yeah. I'm trying to give as much as they gave to the ecosystem by appearing at these events, by creating content for them, by creating, merchandise and using my imagination to creatively self-express to this group of people.
How much of your time now is spent in the Pokemon world versus doing other creative projects that you might be working on?
I would say it's a 60-40.
And 60 is Pokemon, 40 is you?
At this point, yeah.
Ooh. And is a lot of that travel related?
Yes, and most of it is travel related. And in the show, in my show at a Comic-Con, 60% of the material will be Pokemon material, and then 40% will be my own when I have a full concert. I have done shows where I just do all Jason Paige material and then 1 or 2 Pokemon songs.
Yeah, of course.
But most of the time, there's 4 songs and 3 of them are Pokemon and 1 of them is.
And do you find both audiences relate to all the material? Like your Jason Paige music audience is
my Jason Paige, not my Artivist material. The Artivist material is no longer part of my paradigm. However, I sort of rebranded, and I when Pokemon Go came out and the Pokemon generation became adult age and wanted to know who I was, I decided to take all of my really sharp socio-political, sexuological content that drove my artivism and just set it aside and see how I could focus on this environment. And at that time, I felt like I was the only guy doing this crazy music about pharma, about all the causes and all of the problems in the world that I was going to point out in funny songs. And so now there's an army of those people on social media and all the way up into, our current political system that is divided. One half of them are in this sort of make America healthy again camp, the Maha camp, which is pretty much the camp that I was in, that I said, I'm not gonna risk all of my platforms being shut down for my truth speech, my artivism. And now that segment is like just giant. So I don't feel the need to be an artivist anymore because they got it covered. It's already covered now. And I can just continue to give joy in this other way. Right. And at some point, I mean, I have written more artivist pieces. I just haven't put them out. I might just put them out anonymously through AI at some point, but they don't have to be attached to me.
Just in case anyone who's listening thinks like, oh, Jason, he's untouchable. He is such an upstanding, creator and an artivist and all of that. He also wrote the Pepto-Bismol theme song, I think.
Sang.
You only sang it. Oh, well, yeah, you only sang it. Then
I believe the ad agency may have written it, but Pepto themselves may have written, when you get nausea, heartburn, indigestion, upset stomach, diarrhea. That's really all there is to write in that. And I think they probably said, listen, we have a thing. It's for nausea, heartburn, and indigestion, upset stomach, and diarrhea. Give us a song.
And you're like, I'm there.
You really nailed the diarrhea. And I'm sure there were, I've done voiceovers, like 3 words for McDonald's, whatever one of their, I don't know, you got it, let's say. You're there for 3 hours. Just say, you got it. So diarrhea, your diarrhea, the one they chose. Diarrhea. It's so like under. It's like under, but it's so over at the same time. Does that make sense?
My friend Kelly had a diarrhea commercial, and it's hysterical to listen to her. She has to whisper like, diarrhea. So what's next for you?
Well, I'm continuing to expand the ecosystem that is Pokemon related. I have artistic endeavors, and these artistic endeavors are sort of on my hats and my own original art that gets put onto my merchandise. And as you can see, I've got a little art behind me as well. That's original.
And is that on your website?
Yes.
The hats are on the website. However, the concert worn items are only live at my venue.
Oh, and you sign
my
them.
events. So I sign them, I doodle them, and then I concert wear them.
We're looking at
great.
these hats, a listener. We're looking at these hats. I'm wondering, how much do you sweat during a concert?
Well, this one was only worn in one concert, so there's not a lot of sweat in it. But you could probably extract some DNA and do some cloning if you want. That's why the hats are more expensive than the non-concert worn one. I am continuing in the 15th year this season and we're about to start on a pre-production of the Beatles Gospel Nativity. It's called Both, a Beatles Gospel Nativity. I've taken the Beatles, myself, and Mark Wilson, the same person that I did those high school work with. He created this incredible musical mashup back in '99, and we brought it to the stage in 2007, I think. And then it keeps expanding every year. It's the Beatles songs with gospel arrangements. Yes, gospel arrangements telling the nativity story in incredible accuracy, as if the Beatles knew that they were writing about the nativity story.
I love that you call it the nativity. Is this
nativity? Nativity.
Well, he's a Jew. He grew up as a Jew, so of course he's going to call it.
The yativity, the nativity.
Yeah, I thought you were doing a bit. I'm like, oh, he's actually calling it the nativity.
Nativity.
This is a very original idea. I like this idea. I love mashups. I love repurposing and recycling things.
It's phenomenal. In their 15th year, and it tells the story so perfectly. And it's a community a gospel choir that I have built here that is between 20 and 45 people, depending on the year and the availability of people, plus a cast of 10 to 15 for the principal roles. So there's about 60 of us in the
Wise
entire
men,
production.
camels, those kind of.
Wise men, no camels.
I'm
no
not
camels, no camels. But
do you do it in a music venue? So that's why you're able to have the rights.
We've started in small Los Angeles theaters, and it's been expanded to like the Broad Stage in Santa Monica, which is a 500-seat theater.
But they're music venues that have an ASCAP license, and that's how you're able to.
Yes, we do it in a concert. We do it in a concert.
Do you have to license the songs?
We do a concert license.
Okay.
So to do the grand rights is another step that we've been working on to contextualize. And that's a very difficult process, but we are working on it, and it is so. And there's actually someone else did it in the middle of, I think it was Iowa or somewhere. Some church did it. It's just like an idea that's in the universe. When somebody sings, "Here comes the sun, doo doo doo," you're just thinking of the Son of Man, the Son of God. It's not the Beatles. Just it's not the sun.
Right.
It's the sun. So there's no way, and then all you have to do is point at a pregnant belly, or not even a pregnant belly, and you're contextualizing, here comes the sun.
I believe Mary was impregnated in the octopus's garden. Is that right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
I think now Pete and I might like the Beatles.
Yeah. This will make you a Beatles fan. Sure.
It sounds, or at least a Christian. At least.
It is very pan-spiritual.
I want to climb inside of your head, Jason Paige, for a short amount of time. I don't want to stay there, but it just seems like a really fun place. And I feel like we don't, or like it's just in life, you don't meet a lot of artists who are able to balance serious and silly. And that is like a great gift.
Thank you,
Jason,
so much. This was so wonderful.
Thank you, guys. This is really great. It's good to talk with you and really get to the bottom of things.
Hey, thanks for checking us out. Links to today's guest can be found in the show notes.
Don't forget to subscribe, like, and rate us, and tell all your friends about Arts and Craft.